Today on MuscleCar, in with the old, out with the new. We'll show you our plans for this seemingly wasted piece of history and the correct way to tear one apart. Plus the return of the Bandit and some serious tire shredding.
No one knows how long the 61 Impala has been rusting in peace out in a field before we rescued it. This thing's been laying around here for almost 2 years now. The more we looked at it, the more we tried to avoid it. This is not an easy or a quick project. It's kind of like a marriage. There's some mental preparation you got to do. Well, we all got our tetanus shots and we finally manned up enough to actually tackle this project. And Mike's not doing anything today and we could really use the extra manpower. Besides, I hear he's got a knack for ripping stuff apart.
Yeah, this is a pretty rare car too, so we're going to show you how to take your time pulling it apart and salvage every piece you can.
Now that's important, because these two-door sedans, well, they were only made in '61, so there's not many of them left out there. Chevy was pushing the convertibles and the Super Sport model with a choice of 305, 340, and 350 horse engines, and the optional Power Glide. The Sport Coupe, or Bubble Top as it was called, was also popular in '61. The smooth, comfortable ride from the 4 coil springs helped make them disappear from the showroom floors. But we're not going to let this one disappear. Bottom line, it may not have been a popular platform, but just like our plain Jane LeMans, in our book, it's still worth saving. It's just screaming for a new personality. And that's exactly what she's going to get. The body, trim, and interior will stay true to the original car, but the rest, it's in for a lot of change. A new stance from extensive framework, bags, mini tubs, and wheels, plus a stroked, modernized 409 and a 4-speed. It's going to live up to the new name, Red Sled. Now I know it may not look like it, but there's still a lot worth saving on this car. So the first thing we want to do is give it a good once-over, just to see what we've got.
I think you're going to need a trunk pan.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. Hey, it's got some good doors on it.
Holy smoke. It's pretty bad when you can take pieces of the floor out by hand.
Oh, we need that.
What's that? Oh,
It's
cool.
our missing headlight bezel.
Here's the other side.
Sweet. All right.
Realistically, what? The car needs floor pans, lower rear quarters, trunk pan, some of the glass in the car, front left and right fender.
I don't think the car is that bad.
You don't?
No.
Polish it out?
That'll buff out.
Now we know we'll be replacing a lot of these parts, but it doesn't hurt to keep track of everything. When we're reassembling, it'll make it easier to figure out what hardware is needed.
With the old carpet out of the way, we got a good look at our floor pans, right down to the floor.
Oh, here's a good shot of the frame.
When they're this bad, odds are we'll need to replace the bracing as well, but we'll get a better look once we get it up on the lift.
Seats are next, and more rust means more work.
The backside of the bolt is rusted off. There's no way that's going to come out. You're going to have to grind the head off
Cut
it or
off wheel.
something. Yeah.
Sometimes access is limited, so you have to get creative and use whatever you can to get the job done. This is a pretty important piece to save. Finding a replacement could cost lots of time and money.
Well, at least we got one good usable part out of this thing. So it ain't in the greatest of shape, but at least we can use it, rebuild it. I'd hate to have to track down another one of these suckers.
Trim looks good.
So yeah, we can polish the trim out, reuse it. Sweet, let's get the back seat out. There's 47 years of funk on this floor, so we're feeding it to the shop vac before we go any further. To make seat removal easier, the armrests are coming out first. I've had a penny.
Monopoly money or something from the early days. Or I say early days, some of you watching might know exactly where that came from. 1943 quarter.
Whoa, it really is. Holy cow.
And I found a 1941 nickel. Figure 20, 21-year-old kids riding around, buying beer and stuff, dropping change in the back seat. That's pretty cool.
These panels may look like trash, but they can be used as templates for the upholsterer to make new ones. Window glass and regulators are also parts we need to keep track of, at least until we know whether we'll be able to find replacements.
Removing trim can be a time-consuming effort, not to mention a headache. It pays to be careful and not damage it, since most of this will be going to the plating shop to be reused. One easy way to keep track of small hardware and tick off your wife at the same time is to get all the Ziploc bags from your kitchen and label everything.
These taillights are garbage, but we have plans for replacing these, so no worries. Now the front bumper, that thing gave us nothing but problems. Hopefully the rear is going to be easier. We're stuck!
Next off are the deck lid and hood, and since there's very little rust on these, they will definitely be reused.
The damage to the front end could mean we have a bent frame, but once the front clip is off, we can get a better look at the damage.
Rick, look, that frame rail isn't that bent, if at all.
Actually, it doesn't look bad.
All right, Rick, the left front fender is obviously not usable. It needs a core support, battery box, pretty much a whole front clip. Do you think we can save anything?
Dude, I gotta be honest with you, man. I really thought we'd have more usable parts on this thing than this. This is pretty bad. So this is gonna require some research on the internet and tracking some stuff down.
All right.
There's no way around it, but anyway, let's let this thing sit for now. Let's get the doors pulled off.
Let's do it. We lucked out on the doors, no problems getting these off, and the cowl looks pretty good too, so it's going in the keeper pile.
We need to be careful with the back glass. Since this is a unique design, we may not be able to replace it. The best way to make sure it isn't damaged is to get the trim off first. Same with the windshield. Since the rubber is hard as a rock, we'll remove it and the glass should lift right out.
A few more pieces and we're almost ready to raise the body off of the frame. Brent went a couple of rounds with the rear bumper, but it didn't want to cooperate. When you get frustrated with a tough piece, sometimes it's best to let a fresh set of hands tackle it. Here are some of the parts we pulled off of the car that we might be able to reuse, like this front bumper that we're actually going to have a little fun with before we send it to the chrome replaters. The front headlight bezels are the same way, unless we can find new reproduction pieces. The cowl, all we got to do with that is blast it and repaint it.
Now, the steering column here is actually in really nice shape, but since we're going to go with a 4-speed, we can't use it, but we will find it another good home. Some other parts just flat out aren't salvageable, like this lower window frame here. Stuff like this can be really hard to come by, so we're going to take a little break. I'm going to go jump online and see what I can come up with.
Red Sled comes apart and the LeMans comes together after the break.
I didn't have any luck in my internet search for those quarter window frames, so we're going to go ahead and put this thing up on the rack and get the body pulled off.
Now we could use jack stands, but since we got the lift, we're going to take advantage of it.
With the amount of rust on the underside of this thing, we thought getting these bolts out was going to be tough, but they actually came out surprisingly easy. And because Impalas used X frames, all the body mounts are on the firewall and behind the axle, nothing in the middle.
That body mount's not even connected.
The gas tank comes out next. A few spins of the cutoff wheel and we're in business. Just watch out for all that 40-year-old falling funk. Now with all the bolts out, we can lower it down, reposition the lift arms out to the body, and lift it right off. So here it is, the backbone of Red Sled. We're gonna measure the frame to make sure it's square, but the rest of it's going back to the recycler. The coils are gonna get replaced with airbags, but this 283, this thing's getting junked for that stroked and poked 409. But the body looks like something you'd use to strain your spaghetti. Now we got a lot of work ahead of us. Some of these panels, well, they're just not available, so some fabrication's gonna be in order. But before we can see what we really got, the body's gonna have to get blasted. So we're gonna put it on a rotisserie and get it out of the shop. All right, motor and training is gonna come out first to lighten the load, get this chassis a little easier to work with. A 40-plus-year-old tranny fluid, well, it's some pretty nasty stuff. And unfortunately, our 2-speed glide, well, it didn't come with a drain plug, so there's no good way to avoid a mess. Well, Mike had to head back down to horsepower, and after seeing all the work we got ahead of us on old Red Sled, we really needed a reminder that all this hard work will eventually pay off. So today we're gonna finish up the LeMans, take her out for a cruise. Now the last time you saw it, we were almost ready to get the body panels on, but first comes the glass. Dante the glass man came by to give us a hand because he knows more about glass installation than anyone else around here. The trim retainer clips go in first, then he puts on primer to help the bonding. He lays in a bead of urethane adhesive, then carefully places the glass. Now once it's in place, the trim pops right into the clips. The doors go on next. The alignment holes we drilled make it a breeze to get them on straight. Make sure to attach the inner fenders before putting the fenders in place. The cowl, grill, and repop bumpers went on. Then we finished the doors out with the handles, trim, our refurbished regulators, and finally, glass. Next came taillights, headlights, and turn signals. The hinges, hood, and latches went on. Then we dropped in a hood tack for that signature Pontiac look. The deck lid was the last body panel to go on, and the trim finished it off. But before we could hit the streets, Brent had to take care of one little problem: rear wheel clearance. Because we used aftermarket quarter skins, some trimming was in order to keep from slicing up our BFG tires. After taping up the edges to protect the paint, a cut-off wheel slices off a thin strip of metal. Some grinding smooths off the edges, and some holes are drilled for the welds that will reattach the inner fender. The welds are ground down, sanded off, and once the paint's spotted in, she'll be ready to ride. Our Project LeMans had a budget. Now that she's all done, we can do the math, add it up, and see how close we came to our target. Speaking of numbers, we're kind of curious what this thing would sell for, so we're going to call in an expert right after the break.
Up next, the Bandit is back, ready to roll into your garage. Today on Flashback, a YearOne Bandit Trans Am.
You've probably seen a few YearOne cars rolling around on the big screen lately, but for the YearOne team, present-day cinema is not enough. Now check this baby out, YearOne's resto-mod version of the 1977 Trans Am SE, which was made famous by the movie Smokey and the Bandit.
The package that we came up with really is subtle, but makes a pretty big difference. Again, it's really just bringing it up to date more than anything else.
The minor details are pretty trig. With input from Burt Reynolds, the bird on the hood was redone to be a little bigger, but uses less gold, and instead of a decal, it's hand painted. The same goes for the pinstripes. The theme continues into the 18 by 12 snowflake wheels, and up front, the honeycomb grille that was once blacked out is now painted to match the rest of the accents. The original 4 square headlights have been transformed into 2 modern sealed units, and the taillights have been brought up to date with a series of blinding LEDs. The rear glass was reworked and the front glass was made to mount flush with the rest of the car. And don't forget the T-tops, the epitome of 70s cool. The Bandit stance has been lowered for a more aggressive profile, but the body lines have been left alone. The shaker hood, side scoops, and rear spoiler, well, they're all original. Hey, why mess with perfection? Inside, the gauge cluster, door panels, and Bandit logo were all custom made just for this project. And a 5-point harness holds the driver and the performance leather seats that are just waiting for Sally Field.
The visual cues when you're in the driver's seat are 77 Trans Am. The feel of the car, however, is completely different.
Haha, as it should be. A 7-liter LS7 is what drives this Bandit. Modified heads and upgraded cam crank out 605 horsepower. A 5-speed gearbox and 12-bolt rear end get it all out to the road. And a set of 14-inch rotors and 6-piston bare brakes bring it all to a halt. A custom fab 3-inch exhaust keeps the LS7 breathing right. And the MagnaFlow mufflers let everyone around enjoy all those ponies just as much as the driver. The original front subframe has been replaced with a tubular aftermarket clip, along with tubular upper and lower control arms. Fully adjustable coilover shocks front and rear, and a 4-link out back bring this car's handling and road gripping ability to the next level.
From a performance standpoint, the cars are really phenomenal. We knew that since we're going to build this series of cars, and a car that we wanted to drive and enjoy, performance had to be a big part of it.
Now, if you're a die-hard Smokey and the Bandit fan, or if you just want to get your hands on the ultimate Pontiac, YearOne is building them to order. With 3 different levels to choose from, you're sure to find one to make your getaway in. Stick around, we got more MuscleCar after the break.
Coming up, the LeMans gets its day in the sun.
After hundreds of hours of work, our project Budget LeMans is finally ready to hit the street. But before we can cruise it, we need to get insurance on it. Just because we're big TV people doesn't mean we can get away without it. So I'm bringing in a guy here, Barry Potts. He's going to come in and give us a hand.
Hi, my
How you
friend.
doing, Barry?
Doing good.
He's a professional appraiser. His job is to come out and tell us what different things are worth. He analyzes every physical aspect of a car, from engine and interior to paint and even upgrades. But it doesn't end there. A lot of research goes into finding the value of a car, so don't expect to get an on-the-spot estimate. So you said that we can expect an appraisal back in a few days?
Yes.
So wonderful.
Absolutely.
Well, let me get you all the paperwork and the receipts and stuff that you're requesting, and we'll get you out of here.
Let's go.
It's finally time for me and Brent to give our own appraisal of the LeMans. And nothing but good old pedal to the metal testing is going to tell us what we really want to know.
Hit it, man.
So we hit the streets. It's the first time the girl's seen daylight since her carcass was hauled into the shop almost a year ago. It's a great feeling when all the hard work finally pays off.
I really can't get over how smooth it rides, though.
Yeah, we were both itching for some seat time. The first dent we put in it was the one under the gas pedal. This thing feels like every bit of 350 horse.
Oh, yeah, you can feel it.
No stock 326 ever pulled like this.
Purrs like a kitten going down the highway, man.
Yeah, it does. And with a little finessing of the clutch, those BFGs didn't stand a chance. Now that was fun, but for real monster burnouts, nothing beats a line lock. We're running out of daylight and rubber, but we managed to squeeze in just a little more destruction.
Later, man. See you at the shop.
3 days later. Well, we got our appraisal back, and it's got everything in here that you're going to need to get an accurate insurance policy written on your ride. It's got pictures, documents, whatever they might require. Now, Barry set the value of our LeMans here at $24,500, which is great because our budget was $23,500, and we actually even came in a little bit below that, so we're looking great. Now, I got to tell you, we took this thing out and beat the tar out of it for like 8 hours straight, and the only thing that's worse for wear, these poor tires back here, they're looking a little ragged. But hey, that's what building muscle cars is all about, man. So we got the LeMans done, and we got to move on to our next project. So for now, we're out of here.